Hey guys, it's Prince Rich with Rich Technology Group, and in today's video, I want to do an in-depth review of a phone that is a very popular phone, but it is also an oldie but goodie, the Cisco 303G SIP IP phone. Now, before we get into this, you're probably wondering if it's an old phone, why am I doing a review on this? So there's a bit of a backstory to this. For those of you who may or not know, most of the major carriers such as Vonage Business, Nextiva, RingCentral, OnSIP, all of these carriers, for reasons that are covered in a different video, which I will link above in one of the tags or whatever. Basically, they have moved away from Cisco's BroadSoft platform. Again, I'm not going to get into the whole politics and bureaucracy of why this has happened, but this happening has resulted in a lot of the carriers not supporting Cisco phones anymore. Now, for those of you who are watching, I'm assuming the reason why you're watching is because you like voice over IP or you're interested in voice over IP and you prefer Cisco. That's okay. While there are newer Cisco phones out there, which we cover in some other videos and will be covering with other providers that actually still currently support Cisco systems, on the voice over IP and on the internal security side, the problem is that a lot of the carriers, they're literally not supporting any new Cisco phones. So some of the new Cisco phones that are out, like the Cisco 3000 series and the Cisco 5000 series, these carriers like Vonage, Nextiva, OnSIP, the list goes on, they literally do not support Cisco phones. But the reason I wanted to review this phone is because not only have I personally owned this phone, and even my staff has used it. This phone is still being purchased through third-party sources like Amazon for customers that are still getting voice over IP with carriers that don't support Cisco. Because this phone was so popular, it is still very much supported by even the carriers that have moved from Cisco BroadSoft and are not going to support any new phones. So again, this review is for those of you who may be interested in a Cisco phone. You don't necessarily have the budget for some of the higher end stuff like the 3000 and 5000 series, but you do prefer Cisco and you want to know a phone that is reliable, that is solid, that is supported by a broad range of carriers. This is the phone, the Cisco 303G IP phone. So anyways, let's hop into this review and I'm going to give you the pros and cons of the phone, the general price, and then we're going to go from there. So this is a 3-line phone. Let's go to a larger picture for you guys. This is actually a 3-line phone. This was actually one of the first voice over IP phones that I owned. So I want to say that this phone is about 5 years old. I know what you're thinking, 5-year-old phone, oh my God, but don't be fooled. This is actually a really solid phone. So if you're somebody with a small outfit or with a home-based business or that works for a larger company and just needs a phone for your home that, ties into your extension so that you can take calls at home as well, and you prefer Cisco, but you don't want to spend a lot of money for a phone, this is the phone. Also, if you're somebody that's watching that your, employer provides phones at the office, but you want a phone so that you can work from home or work remotely, but they don't pay for that, you've got to pay for the phone for your home. This is also a great option because this is a very inexpensive phone coming in at, you can get it for, I want to say this phone runs for about $60 to $70 brand new and somewhere around as low as $35 certified refurb through reliable sources with a, like a 30 or 90-day warranty. So, and I will provide those links below to Amazon for this phone, new and certified refurb from some reliable sources that you could shop on Amazon. Anyways, it's a 3-line phone. One of the reasons that I like this phone when I had it is because when you look at a lot of these newer phones, they don't have the full color button that has the light per se. It's typically like a little flashing thing that's like a corner part of the button or just a segment of the button that flashes if you have an incoming call or a call on hold. I really like how with this phone, the Cisco 303G, the actual thing lights up green. It's actually a full green, just like a stoplight. I mean, like a go light, like you would see on traffic lights. It's a full green with the same type of tint from like a go traffic light on the whole button when it is a line available. It is a flashing red, just like a flashing red stoplight when it is a call coming in on an available line. And it's a solid red when you have like a person on hold or something like that, or a person parked. So I personally really, when I used this phone, actually really liked the light indicators and just how bold the lighting was. I know that may sound silly for some, but you'd be surprised how many companies I have that contact me that maybe they have a staffer that has like a vision impairment, a minor vision impairment, or they're in a place that's very noisy or very busy, and they need to be able to very easily see if a line is coming in or if there's a call on hold or something like that. If that's you and you like Cisco and you don't mind a phone that's a little bit older and you're on a shoestring budget, this is the phone for that. It does have a monochrome screen. It's not a color screen. So for those of you who are watching this that are thinking, oh crap, it's not a color screen, keep in mind it's about a 4 to 5 year old phone. So beggars can't be choosy. It's a solid phone, but it is without some of the richer features that most people are used to. Another nice thing about the phone is that when you have a voicemail, this big bar that you see here that is above the actual screen, it flashes red. When you have no voicemail, it looks just like what you see in the image. When you have voicemail available, it flashes literally red, so you can't miss it if you've got voicemail or need to check voicemail. One other thing I wanted to throw out, if you want to see the actual phone if you want to see this actual phone in living color in a video, and I'll tag it on this video above so you guys can see it. This phone I actually did a full, not a review on, but I actually did an unboxing from Vonage Business, sending me 4 of these phones for free in another video. I'm sorry, 3 of these phones for free in another video. So you'll be able to see that in the other video, which I'll mention if you want to see the actual phone, in its glory per se. This phone has a speakerphone. If you can or can't see it in the image here, the speaker is actually behind the handset, and it's a decent speakerphone. I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's Polycom HD voice because it is an older phone, so it's not quite on par with the Polycom's HD voice quality, but it is a very acceptable speakerphone. It's better than what you would expect from a speakerphone on even some newer cell phones like an iPhone 10 or something like that. It's definitely better than that, so it is a great speakerphone in that regard. Let me see. The phone has what we call menu-driven display. For those of you who remember the old school cell phones where you look at the bottom of the screen and then the cell phone has the function keys, and then you've got a caption that's on the screen like here that says, like menu, directory, recent calls, whatever it may be. That's how this works. So depending on what screen you're on the phone, you've basically got tabs down here on the bottom of the screen that correspond directly to the buttons that you see here. Very simple and intuitive to use, very easy to use. Again, I used this phone for almost 3 years before I gave the phone to my wife and then upgraded to a Polycom VVX 300. The funny thing is too, this phone, this Cisco 303G IP phone, was actually the standard issue phone for our company for a while, for about 4 years, for my administrative assistant and even new salespersons that we had working with us throughout the United States. It was the standard issue phone. Everybody liked it. Nobody complained. I think the biggest thing I liked about it was the ease of use. Even though I had salespersons that were selling phone and internet service for the company, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were phone and internet experts like myself. I personally installed these phones for, big companies over the years. My staffers did not. So for them to have hardly ever called me saying, hey, Prince, how do I do this? How do I do that? And all I did was just give them a quick cheat sheet from Cisco that explained just a basic function like how to transfer, how to put a call on hold, things like that. It was an excellent phone. So if you're somebody who doesn't mind a phone that's a little older, wants a phone that, again, supports the carriers that aren't supporting newer phones but still support this one, and you want ease of use, this is the phone. This phone is definitely a lot easier to use, in my opinion, than a lot of the newer Ciscos that are on the market like the 3000, 4000, and 5000 series. Let's see here. This phone also has blind and attended call transfer. So you can simply transfer people to an extension, not knowing whether the person is there to answer the call or whatnot, or even in the office. Or you can also do attended transfer, like place the person on hold with this phone, contact the person that you are hoping to transfer them to, find out if they're there and if they want to take the call or are available to take the call, and then go back to the person and say, hey, I just talked to Bob. He said he can take a call now. Please hold while I transfer you. It does both, blind and attended transfer. This phone supports music on hold, so you can put people on hold and they'll get the music on hold that's set up in your system. It has do not disturb, and it also has a personal directory that allows up to 100 entries, whether that be personal entries, whatever, and whatnot. It also allows you to set custom ringers and even distinctive rings if your voice over IP provider supports call tagging. You can also set up distinctive rings with this phone so that you know whether the call's coming in or a business call or a personal call or a call from another department or sector within your company or something like that. It has all the typical features that any typical phone has these days. This phone really has all the features that even the newer phones have these days. The only thing that this phone lacks is, I would say, it doesn't have any type of Bluetooth support because it's an older phone. So if you're somebody that needs some sort of like Bluetooth or Bluetooth headset or Bluetooth hands-free accessory support, you can forget it. This phone doesn't support that. This phone does support an 8mm headset jack for a actual call center headset. I actually used this phone with a call center headset for years. The headset, even though you can't see it in this image, is actually to the side of the phone where you see me moving my cursor on the screen. It's actually literally right there where you see the red circle. So when you look to the side of it. So if you need a headset, like a call center style headset, you know, it does support that. The phone also has a pass-through. Now, because it's an older phone, keep in mind, it is not a gigabit pass-through, it's a 10100 pass-through, but we're going to cover that later in this review. The pros of this phone. This is a very, very durable phone. I would go as far as saying, even though I personally like the newer Yealink phones more because they're very feature-rich and they're pretty phones, this phone is definitely more durable than a Yealink. When you hold the handset in your hand or hold the actual whole phone in your hand, you can tell that this is a solid phone. It's built from solid plastic. It's built with durability and longevity in mind. So if you're looking for something that's tough, this is the one. It's got nice line appearance, as I already mentioned earlier. That's one of the biggest pros with this phone. I use a Polycom nail on my desk, and I can honestly say I miss the big, bold, flashing lights on my old Cisco that scream, you know, you've got voicemail, or scream, you've got an incoming call or a call on hold, answer me. It's something that I feel like these newer phones where things have gotten more minimal, kind of a minimalist approach with the lighting on the phones, this is still very bold on the line appearance, and I personally really like that with this phone. The speakerphone in this phone is great. It's got a really good speakerphone. Again, like I said, it's not Polycom HD grade level speaker, but it is excellent for somebody who relies heavily on a speakerphone. I would definitely recommend it. Ethernet pass-through is a pro, as we mentioned, but we're going to get into that later, which there is a bit of a con there. But like I said, we're going to just try to keep moving along. The other thing about this phone is it's had plenty firmware updates over the years, so it is a very stable phone. When I use this phone, I never had issues with things like crashing later in its maturity. With my Polycoms and with some Polycoms I've seen, they may have issues with rebooting firmware. You'll see firmware updates coming in constantly, but you can't knock Polycom. It's a newer phone. It's the same with your computers and laptops and things like that. As things come out, when they're new, the developers are always adding things to it and adding firmware and fixing bugs and little glitches and things like that. This is a solid phone that has had more than enough time to mature into its age. So you won't really see things like crashing and constant firmware updates and weird glitches and things like that. It's a very solid phone in its own way. As I already mentioned, one of the big pros of this phone is, and I want to reiterate this, which is the whole reason for this video, is while all of the major carriers have moved away from the Cisco BroadSoft platform and created their own proprietary platforms, it means that they are not supporting any new Cisco phones. So if you're somebody watching this that just absolutely has to go with Nextiva or absolutely wants to go with Vonage Business, but you absolutely want Cisco for your phone, no questions asked, this is a great phone because most of the carriers understand that this phone has a solid seating in the market. So even though they have dropped support for future Cisco phones and models, they have decided they will stick to this phone. So that's a really big thing there. So let's get into the cons of this phone. We actually did a video on one of the cons on this phone, and this phone has a really strange glitch, but as long as you are aware of this glitch, it's not a big deal. I'm a big speakerphone person. I really like to listen to my voicemail on speakerphone. I personally don't see the need of holding a phone to my ear and listening to voicemail, especially when sometimes, thanks to you guys who watch my YouTube channel and help, promote us and put food on the table, that contact us and use our services to find a provider, it's not unusual for me to have like 45 voicemails when I go to check voicemail. So for me, it's not really, it's counterproductive for me to sit there and hold a handset up to my ear to listen to a bunch of voicemails. The problem with this phone is, and I'll explain this the best I can. If you hit the speakerphone, which is this button here, without actually picking up the handset, to go to put in your PIN number, when it says, please enter your PIN number, when you actually type in your PIN number with the dial pad, the phone actually makes noise. It makes noise externally and it makes noise internally. The speakerphone actually interprets those noises along with the numbers that you're typing in. When the phone first launched, people would think that there was an issue with the phone. Like they couldn't get into their voicemail. I had dozens and dozens and dozens of customers all over the United States when this phone was in its heyday calling me and saying, Prince, I can't get into my voicemail. Is my PIN wrong or is there a glitch or whatever? It wasn't a glitch. What it was that when you try to check voicemail on speaker or when you try to enter your PIN number to access your voicemail on speaker, the speakerphone is also interpreting those tones while the phone internally is also interpreting the button that you're pushing. And then you would never be able to get through because it would think that your PIN was wrong every single time without fail. So what I recommend you do if you're somebody that is looking at using this phone and you like to check voicemail on speaker is pick up the handset first, access your voicemail, which is this button here. It's going to ask you, whatever your provider, it's going to ask you for your PIN. At that point, you need to press the speaker button, which will open up speaker and allow for you to hang up the handset. And then you can type in your PIN. You type in your PIN while you're still on the handset. And then you go back and click the speakerphone and hang up the call on the handset while you still have speaker on so you don't hang the call up. And then you can listen to your voicemails and enter your commands like for new messages, press 1, for save messages, press 9, to delete a message, press 7, and everything works. It's just a quirk with this phone that has something to do with when you're trying to enter your PIN number for voicemail with the speaker on. It's regardless of carrier. I've had tons of people call me about the issue across all carriers. It's an issue specific to the phone, so it's not your carrier. So that's one con with the phone there. Another con is it doesn't have a backlit LCD. If you're somebody like me that is typically working in an environment that has light, even when I'm working even at night, I have a lamp or something on at my desk. My house is kind of sort of a glass house. So during the day, I've got plenty of light. So for me, it's not a big deal. If you're somebody that works in an environment where you may have low light settings, like a college auditorium where you may need to dim the lights for a presentation, or like a doctor's office or something like that, where you may need to dim the lighting to, a dentist, you might need to dim the lighting to look inside of someone's mouth, or dim the lighting to look at x-rays on an x-ray, machine on the wall or something like that. This phone may not be the best for you because it doesn't have a backlit screen and it doesn't have backlit keys. So that's one thing. The other con that I wanted to get into, which I covered earlier, but I didn't want to elaborate on too much, but now we're going to elaborate, is this phone does not have gigabit pass-through ports. It does have pass-through ports. So if you're somebody that needs a pass-through port because you only have one wire at a location where you need a desk, where you need a phone and a computer, it does have pass-through ports. But here's the problem. The pass-through ports on this phone, because this is an older phone, are not gigabit. They're only 10100. This is really important because, and I'm going to give you guys an example. I have one customer that has used these phones for years. That is a boat broker that sells boats, aircrafts, and RVs. They went to Comcast and upgraded from 100 megabit internet to 500 megabit broadband internet. They realized that they weren't getting the speeds that they wanted, and they had a technician come out, and the technician was able to pinpoint that the phones were the bottleneck with the internet. It's because they had one wire going into the phone and then one wire going out into their PC. Even though they had 500 megabit internet, this phone only has 10-100, meaning 100 megabyte capable pass-through ports on it. So it means that they were still bottlenecked going through the phone to the computer at only 100 megabytes. What was the fix? They had to contact somebody to run separate wires to each one of the computers so that the phones could be on a separate dedicated wire. If you're only getting 100 megabytes to the phone, that's fine. Nobody needs 500 megabytes on a daggone IP phone. You may need that for your computer. So I recommend if you're using this phone in an environment where you have intranet over 100 megabytes, or you have a lot of phones, like say 15 to 20 or more phones, I recommend putting this phone on a dedicated cable so that you can have whatever other network appliances at that desk, such as a computer or printer, on a separate dedicated network cable. So the two or the three don't interfere because of the pass-through restriction on the phone. The final con that I wanted to get into is that this phone, which we mentioned earlier, does not have Bluetooth support. Newer Cisco phones do have Bluetooth support because it's 21st century, but this phone does not because it's an older phone. It's pushing close to 5 years old. So just keep that in mind. This phone does not have Bluetooth support. So if you need a phone that has Bluetooth support, I recommend you look at something like a Yealink or something like that, which we do represent voice over IP phone system carriers that offer those for free, included in plans and whatnot. Back on the Bluetooth thing. As I already mentioned before, if you absolutely need some sort of a headset, while you won't be able to go Bluetooth wireless or USB wireless, there is a 8mm headset jack. A 2.5 millimeter headset jack port that's right here for this phone. So you can use a headset with it, just not a Bluetooth wireless headset because this phone doesn't support that. So, in conclusion, I do recommend this phone for small to medium businesses or people that like Cisco. This phone I mostly recommend to people that want a basic Cisco phone that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, that is still supported by the voice over IP providers, which have moved away from Cisco's BroadSoft platform and openly state that they don't support newer Cisco phones. Again, this phone retails for about $60 to $80 new, approximately about $30 to $40 certified refurbished. I'll include some links below in this video for those of you who want it. If you're somebody who is looking at this phone, but you don't have a voice over IP provider and you like this phone and would like some recommendations on a voice over IP provider, remember, that's what I do. Prince Rich, your go-to guy for the best deals on business phone and internet service in the United States. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and I'll catch you guys again in the next video.